you're spending more time on recruiting, you're short-staffed, and I think a lot of business owners are waiting for things to get back to normal, and they're not. This is why I'm going to start to shy away from this talent crisis notion and talk about that it's really a talent shift. And it requires a major restructuring, a rethinking on how you look at talent.
Welcome to the new Talent Playbook podcast, your go-to resource for building exceptional teams and thriving businesses. Each episode delivers actionable insights on harnessing offshore talent, integrating innovative technology, cultivating a vibrant company culture, and attracting and retaining top performers. Subscribe now to never miss an episode. For more resources, visit the newtalentplaybookpodcast.com, where you can download this episode's free workbook designed to help you apply today's insight to your business. And now, here's your host, Rob Levin.
So my guest today is me, Rob Levin, founder of Work Better Now, author of the Amazon bestseller, The New Talent Playbook, and someone who's spent years helping small and mid-sized businesses better run their businesses. And over the past several years, how they find and keep great people that help them fulfill their dreams. I wanted to do this episode to put out some of the major concepts of the book in one place and actually talk about something. It's a subtle change, a little change in my thinking. Before I get into that, I just want to tee something up. If you look at the research, and my Substack has the sources for this, roughly about 85 to 88% of small and mid-sized business owners are really struggling to find and keep good people. And like I said, it's backed by research. So about, let's say 15% actually get what I'm about to walk through today. And I really want to help the other 85% get over into that other 15% that are attracting and retaining great people. And with that, they're just crushing their goals. So as I'm both the podcast host and the guest, I'm going to ask the questions, and I'll start with the first one here. You used to call this a talent crisis. Why am I now calling it a talent shift? And how bad is the problem? So a crisis, and this is just something that recently dawned on me, implies that it's temporary and it's something that you just need to kind of survive and get past this. It's what we're dealing with talent, where it's just really hard to find great talent, hard to keep great talent. And because of this, a lot of companies they're lowering their expectations and lowering their goals. This is a structural shift that is permanent. I know everybody's reading in the papers about all of these headlines, but as I've been talking about, what you're reading about is big company phenomenon. Small and mid-sized businesses are struggling to find and keep great talent. And with that, their results suffer. On top of that, it's not just the finding and the keeping. The way that people work and the way that they're expecting to be led, all of this has fundamentally changed. The pain is very real. So some ways you might be seeing this: you post a job opening and you're flooded with unqualified applicants or no applicants at all, or you finally find someone good, there's a great resume, and you get ghosted at the beginning or the middle of the process, or they have higher than expected salary expectations, or this great person on your team that you thought was really attached to you and to your company leaves with a couple weeks notice. You're spending more time on recruiting, you're short-staffed. And, I think a lot of business owners are waiting for things to get back to normal, and they're not. This is why I'm going to start to shy away from this talent crisis notion and talk about that it's really a talent shift. And it requires a major restructuring, a rethinking on how you look at talent. So that leads me to my next question, which is, what's the one thing, the most important thing that the 15% understand that the 85% don't, the 15% that are doing great with talent? And they understand that talent is the biggest growth lever. Now, strategy is important, launching a new product or service expansion. Those things can happen and make an impact, but they still require great people to execute. And the pace of change in business is so fast that you need great people other than you who are going to not only stay on top of these changes, but are going to harness these changes. So if you get nothing else from this episode, it's that talent deserves the same strategic attention that you give revenue. So every year you come up with a sales plan, a marketing plan, you need a talent plan. Now, next question is, well, where does culture fit into all of this? Or what's the most important thing When you understand and appreciate that talent is the biggest lever of your success, how does culture fit into all of this? Culture is the foundation for everything related to talent, hiring, retention, performance, etc. And it's not ping pong tables. As my buddy Sean Bussey says, it's the water that we swim in, that your team swims in. It's how decisions get made. It's how people are treated, what gets rewarded, how people get recognized. And core values are the starting point for all of this. And it's never too late to define them or to evolve them. Maybe you have some, core values on a wall, but they really haven't been in practice. It's never too late to redefine these things and work with your top team about maybe establishing new ones and talking about how we're going to live these core values. When you don't have clear, compelling core values, everything downstream is hiring for fit, managing performance, recognizing great work is guesswork because you haven't defined what those things are. And that's where the core values come into play.
The reviews are in, and leaders are calling Rob Levin's new book a game changer. The new Talent Playbook, the ultimate guide to building your dream team, is now available, and it's your roadmap to winning the war for talent and scaling with total confidence. Don't just take our word for it. Order your copy today and see why it's a must-read for every SMB leader. Find it on Amazon.com or learn more at thenewtalentplaybook.com.
Next question is around retention. What are companies getting wrong about keeping their best people? I'm going to flip the question around. What are companies getting right? The companies that are getting retention right and are not having their top people leave, they only see compensation as a part of the fix for retention. Compensation is important, but it's not the only thing. And if you think about it, work-life balance, we saw a major shift with the pandemic, but work-life balance has been shifting for at least 100 years. And it's continuing to shift and it's shifting faster, right? So the more you recognize that, hey, people will dedicate their 8 hours a day to you, but you have to understand that they have other things going on. And that's where things like remote and maybe a little bit of flexibility with hours and stuff, that's important. What else is important? What are companies getting right about this? They have internal mobility within their company. They have an opportunity for their top people to grow inside their company. And this can't be an afterthought. Again, we talked about like maybe a people plan every year. What's your plan to internally grow people? And here's the thing I'm going to tell you, because what's a big part of internal mobility is something called upskilling. This is when you provide training. It could be internal or external for employees. This has never been more important because every facet of business is changing, right? Marketing, HR, operations, AI is changing all of these things. Other parts of technology is changing all these things. There's no way your company can continue to add the capabilities without adding all these new people. You don't need to do that. The companies that are getting this right are constantly offering opportunities for their people to upskill, again, through training that you will pay for, maybe give time for. Could be internal or external again. And it does something that's beneficial not only for the employee because they're getting new skills, but it's really beneficial for you because you're getting these new capabilities. Hey, I'm going to offer you an AI training course or several courses. I want you then to come back and tell us how can we start to implement some of these things that you learned. And then, by the way, when you do that, you'll really be eligible for that next promotion, of course, the raise that comes with it. Everybody's happy with upskilling. Companies who realize that they need to offer upskilling, and with that comes internal mobility, they are retaining people. In fact, there's a 60% increase in employee retention when you have internal mobility opportunities. What also helps with retention? Recognition. And it doesn't have to be complicated. If you've been following this podcast for a while, or you read my book, or you follow the Substack, I've talked many times about the W awards that we use at Work Better Now. It's a very simple system. It doesn't cost much money. It's very inexpensive. And it's so priceless because we're 100% remote. We have these weekly meetings on Microsoft Teams. And when people get recognized, they love it. And we've had this program for years. It's still very popular. So now we talked about retention. Let's talk about hiring. What needs to change? Where is hiring broken for a lot of these companies, these 85 to 88% that are struggling with talent? They're still trying to hire like it was 2016 or 2006. And that doesn't work anymore. Employees, prospective employees are checking you out before they even fill out an application or whatever your application process is. They're looking you up on Glassdoor and other sites. I have a Substack post on this, and again, it's mentioned in the book. Check out your Glassdoor score. What are current and former employees saying about your company? This is your employer brand. And your reputation is basically your recruiting strategy. Is this a great company to work for or not a great company to work for? Employer brand is more important than ever because it's out in the public now. What's also very important is speed and respect. The days of, hey, that person is lucky to have a job at this company, right? Those days are way over. Okay. You want to treat candidates the way you treat prospective customers. If you have multiple people interviewing somebody, which is a great idea, do it on the same day or consecutive days. Have that cycle time of when somebody applies to when you make a decision to hire somebody as short as possible. I'm not saying to skip steps, but just make it a very candidate friendly process. Okay. When I started my career, I worked with one of what at the time was one of the big six companies. And, I was interviewing with partners and managers that were billing out this is a long time ago, at a lot of money, hundreds of dollars an hour. Today it would be over $1,000 an hour. And their number one priority was when a candidate came in, who's usually a college student came in, or maybe a graduate school student, their top priority was that interview. If you had a client call and a candidate was waiting at your office, hey, I need to call you back, and you deal with the candidate. You should think about those types of strategies and tactics as well. Slow processes lose good candidates. Next question. I talk a lot about widening your talent pool. What does that mean? Very simply, I didn't get into a lot of discussion about what I used to talk about with the talent crisis, now the talent shift. Look, it's harder and harder to find people, and it's really hard to find people when you're just limited locally to people who can kind of come into your office. It could be almost impossible to find somebody depending on where you are. And the answer is to make your company remote friendly. Hire more people remotely. This way, you're opening up to a wider talent pool. And that's not just in the rest of the United States, it's looking outside to the whole entire world. There is a ton of great talent with fantastic experience, great attitude, fantastic English skills that resides out there. And by the way, yes, you will save money because the cost of living in most parts of the world is a lot less than what it is in the United States. But I actually want you to think about this from a different perspective, which is first, you're going to get some of your best people from outside of the country. We are, of course, biased to Latin America, and we have about 80% of our workforce, including many members of our leadership team, are based in Latin America. And the 15% of the companies that are doing great with talent, they've already figured this out. It's getting almost impossible for small and mid-sized businesses to find great talent without looking beyond our borders. And not only that, but to benefit from the increase in margin you'll have because of the lower cost of living in these countries. Last question, which is, well, what about AI? Does that change the talent equation? Well, sort of, but maybe not the way that most people think, at least not yet. AI is changing business. And here at Work Better Now, we're trying to become an AI first company where we're redesigning our workflows and all of that stuff and retraining our entire team to essentially manage AI. We're not there yet. And most of the small and mid-sized business market is not even close to there yet. But this will happen, and it will make the right talent even more important, not less important, because you're going to need people who can think critically, who can manage AI, apply it strategically, who have great judgment to know when AI is producing good results or not good results and how to fix that. So AI is not a reason to deprioritize talent. It's a reason to double down on getting the right talent now by doing all of those things I talked about earlier. And, I mentioned upskilling earlier. This is a great time. I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm one of the older people in my company. We're turning to younger people who are more digital natives to help us with this movement to AI first. We want people who can learn quickly, et cetera. So let's recap what we talked about here today. We talked about appreciating talent as your number one lever. And you start that by building a strong culture. You start that by really taking core values seriously. And if you don't have them, then take your A players and reevaluate that. How to do that, it's mentioned in my book. Offer internal mobility, upskilling, recognize your people, fix your hiring process, expand your talent pool globally. And, the big shift for me is this is not, it's really in the terminology. I knew this wasn't like a temporary crisis, but a long-standing crisis. But this is a shift that everybody has to adapt to. And the playbook exists, and that's what the New Talent Playbook and this podcast and my Substack are all about. I will include some links to some of the Substack posts that I reference. And here's to having a great 2026 where you really focus on prioritizing talent and then watch your talent help your dreams come true.
Thanks for listening. The New Talent Playbook podcast is brought to you by Work Better Now. Don't forget to review, subscribe, and download the workbook for this episode at the link below. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on LinkedIn at the New Talent Playbook Podcast or visit thenewtalentplaybookpodcast.com.